Here's your news for April 2nd, 2020. We're kicking off today with news from AJ Styles as the Phenomenal One prepares for his Boneyard match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania. In a recent promo, Styles even criticized the dead man's real-life wife, Michelle McCool, and hinted on an episode of The Bump that the former Divas champion may be the reason her husband is so angry. He said, "Michelle, obviously, instead of taking tips from her husband, she was obviously watching me elsewhere getting some real pointers. You know, learning how to do the Styles Clash, as it's called. Maybe that's what he's so angry about. He was trying to teach her some things, and obviously, she learned from the best, AJ Styles." Styles is certainly not making any friends on the road to WrestleMania, but time will tell whether all this trash-talking will lead to the two-time WWE Champion becoming just the third man to ever defeat the Phenom at WrestleMania. One name fans won't see at this weekend's show is Roman Reigns, who was pulled out of his Universal Championship match due to fears over his compromised immune system. Due to his 2 battles with leukemia, it's dangerous for Roman to travel in the current climate, and Triple H recently spoke with Ariel Helwani of ESPN about the matter, saying, "Roman has his situation and his reasons for doing the things he's doing, but I will say from our standpoint and the storyline standpoint, it's going to play out in a unique manner, and we want it to play out that way. I don't want to give away the ending of the movie before the movie takes place." When asked about how quickly things had changed in WWE, the King of Kings spoke about how it was during a show on the 11th of March that he questioned Vince McMahon on the matter. He said, "I had mentioned to Vince the day before, and I said, maybe we should leave some of this stuff up just in case, because it seems like things are going in a weird direction very quickly. Within a 24-hour period after that, everything was shutting down." It's been rumored that Braun Strowman will replace the big dog and challenge Universal Champion Goldberg at WrestleMania, and hopefully fans will get some answers this Friday on SmackDown. Speaking of WrestleMania, this year's show clearly won't be what the WWE had planned just a few months ago, but it may also not look how fans are expecting either. During the latest edition of Wrestling Observer Live, Bryan Alvarez spoke about how WWE has the time to make plenty of edits to the program, and gave the example of the recent King Corbin segment where he was shown to be pushing Elias off of a great height on SmackDown. One of the few benefits of WrestleMania being pre-taped is they can edit the show days in advance, though we're confident that WWE would much rather the show be live in front of tens of thousands of fans. Now, we all know Vince McMahon's mantra that the show must go on, but in these unpredictable times, that may be easier said than done. Recently, the state of Florida issued a stay-at-home order which expires on April 9th, leaving the WWE free to film more TV from April 10th. But if that changes, then it may cause a serious issue for the company. On Twitter, WrestleVote spoke about rumors circulating around the Performance Center, saying that if another stay-at-home order was put in place, then the WWE would possibly take a break from TV after WrestleMania. This report also added that if the WWE does have to take a pause, then some footage already shot for the April 6th Raw may not be used after all. As of right now, the company has this weekend's event and the Raw after Mania filmed, but time will tell whether fans get much more WWE TV this time next week. With Raw and SmackDown possibly cancelled, and WWE not doing any live events for the entire month of April, it's hardly surprising that the superstars are worried about their futures. According to a report by Wrestling News, several stars are worried, and while main eventers and even mid-card talent don't seem too concerned, those lower on the card aren't confident in their futures. The report reads, "One wrestler in WWE told me, I think guys know they can't depend on AEW as their safety net because they're going through their issues with canceled shows. This will be tough for a lot of guys and for a lot of people in the wrestling business overall." It's interesting that some WWE superstars have considered AEW to be their safety net, but with the relatively new promotion also canceling events, and indie shows not happening either, these next few months will be a very stressful time for many superstars. We've got some good news now, as despite everything that's going on in the world of wrestling, the WWE superstars are finding a new, interesting way to keep busy. This week, WWE will launch their new Dream Match Mania, which will see stars from different eras face off in WWE 2K20, with the match also being commentated on by superstars. The first episode will take place today at 1 p.m. Eastern on the WWE Network and the company's social media channels, and there's plenty of huge matches for fans to see. From The Rock vs. Roman Reigns commented on by the Usos, to Charlotte vs. Beth Phoenix commented on by the Queen and Glamazon herself, there's plenty of dream matches for fans to see. We're heading over to AEW now, as this week's edition of Dynamite saw Brody Lee take another swipe at Vince McMahon. After parodying the WWE CEO's disdain for sneezing last week, the former Luke Harper insisted that his Dark Order followers call him Mr. Brody this week, and told them to repeat the phrase, "We are one," to his satisfaction. This is seemingly a shot at McMahon, who is known for telling commentators to use certain phrases over and over again, and Lee wasn't finished taking shots at his former boss. After one follower was caught yawning, the Exalted One questioned why they were tired, saying it shows weakness, which many have seen as a dig of McMahon, who detests weakness, and it's not uncommon for McMahon and his writers to stay up until the early morning working. Fans will have to wait until next week's Dynamite to see what Lee does next, but it seems clear that the former WWE superstar is more than happy out of the company. From one former superstar with an axe to grind to another now, as Ryback Reeves hasn't had many good things to say about WWE since his 2016 departure. On his podcast, the big guy spoke about walking out of the company and revealed a plan he pulled off to make sure WWE paid him in the months between him walking out and his eventual release. He said, "I walked out in May, and my contract wasn't up until August. They and I already knew my game plan because I knew I could fall on injury pay. At the time, though, I had not gotten any work done. I just walked out and they tried to suspend my pay 2 weeks later and they said, 'We're not going to pay you if you're not sitting at home.' And I said, 'F you, I'm hurt. I had a ruptured eardrum and a nose that I never got fixed. So I made them fix my ear and my nose, and then I got put on injury pay right away. I got paid and stayed on the injured list, and I didn't get cleared until the day my contract expired.'" It was a savvy move by Ryback, who has quietly transitioned away from the ring, and like Lee, seems much happier outside of WWE. Back to the current WWE roster now, as though there was a time when it looked like Sasha Banks would be gone, the Boss is clearly here to stay. Recently, rumors circulated that the Boss would face her friend and SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley in a singles match at WrestleMania, and although the pair will face off this weekend, it'll be in a 5-woman match. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said that the plan was for the two best friends to face off, but said they thought it was too soon, but didn't specify who they were. It's likely that WWE will eventually have Banks and Bayley face off, but the question remains whether either woman will hold the SmackDown Women's Championship after WrestleMania. More Mania news now, as this year's show will be hosted by former NFL star Rob Gronkowski, and while we don't know what he'll do, Triple H has teased something big. In the interview with ESPN, he said, "People have said, 'What are your plans for Gronk?' I said we don't have plans for Gronk, Gronk has plans for us. I think he's going to do some really cool stuff that people will be shocked that he actually does. I think that the event itself will be spectacular, while obviously not in a stadium with 70 to 80,000 people." In that same interview, the game also spoke about the much smaller showcase of the Immortals, adding, "The look and feel will be phenomenal. I think that talent really stepped up to bring the energy and the excitement, knowing how important it was." One thing we know is that this year's show will be one to remember, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of production the company pulls off for this weekend's event. We've got some good news in this unpredictable time, as 9 years after commenting on it on Raw, it looks like CM Punk will finally get his WWE Ice Cream Bars. While these new bars won't include a stick, they will feature ice cream between 2 cookies, with the first wave including pictures of Roman Reigns, John Cena, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Becky Lynch printed on them. At just 150 calories per bar, these will be a great treat for any WWE fan, especially as summer approaches. We're heading back to AEW now, as Jon Moxley is set to defend his World Championship in 2 weeks. On Dynamite, Moxley will defend the title against the Inner Circle's Jake Hager, and this will be a no-holds-barred match. Though the match will take place at AEW's undisclosed location, which they are using to prevent fans gathering, this has caused some unique problems for wrestlers. Fightful Select have reported that many wrestlers haven't been able to make the shows due to travel issues, saying, "AEW travel is still being figured out for some of this week's episode of Dynamite. There were several members of the roster from New York and California who couldn't make the trip in last week, and this week the show is filming from an undisclosed location." With the TNT Championship tournament set to take place over the next few weeks, time will tell who will be able to make it, as the company builds towards their Double or Nothing pay-per-view on May 23rd. Back to WWE now, and this week's edition of NXT featured a huge triple threat match over the North American title. Despite the odds being against him, Keith Lee was able to retain over Damian Priest and Dominik Dijakovic, and that wasn't the only huge win of the night. In a second-chance gauntlet match to enter the women's #1 contender ladder match, it was Dakota Kai who earned a spot in the 6-woman match, despite Shotzi Blackheart eliminating every other participant in the gauntlet match other than Kai. Now the Kiwi joins Chelsea Green, Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim, and Io Shirai in the match, where the winner will be the #1 contender for the NXT Women's Championship. For AEW news now, as this week saw Lance Archer's long-awaited debut, who didn't disappoint. Defeating Marco Stunt with ease, Archer will now look ahead to the TNT Championship tournament, as he'll face Colt Cabana in the first round. After an impressive tenure in companies such as TNA and New Japan, Archer has all the skills to become a big name in AEW, and time will tell whether the former WWE superstar becomes the very first AEW TNT champion. Now, we all know that over the years, many wrestlers have tried their hands at acting, and now it seems that Sonya Deville is looking to follow in the footsteps of John Cena and The Rock. In an interview with Digital Spy, the SmackDown superstar revealed her plans, saying, "Recently I've been going out to LA and trying to just dive into Hollywood. It's something that coincides well with WWE, with the likes of John Cena and The Rock being super successful in both, and I would love to be a female that can do the same." As she's a relatively fresh face in WWE's women's division, it'll probably be a while until Deville makes the jump, but given her recent performance in the Otis, Mandy Rose, Dolph Ziggler storyline, she certainly has the acting chops to make it in Hollywood. And finally today, we're ending with news from Kelly Kelly, as the former Divas champion spoke about her title win over Brie Bella in 2011. Speaking to Chris Van Vliet, Kelly recalled that it was a People Power fan vote that gave her the opportunity, saying, "It was either me, Eve Torres, or Beth Phoenix, and we didn't know up until. But we knew who was gonna win the belt off of Brie Bella. So right until 5 seconds before my name was called, that's when we knew. I just remember my name being called, and I was so emotional, and that's why I was crying. It was like all this hard work paid off, the office recognized, the fans were so happy." Kelly would ultimately lose the title to the Glamazon a few months later, though the former superstar would make history, becoming the first female 24/7 champion years later.